So we're all here to hope to get a little bit more of an understanding on how to improvise, how to make up our own songs, how to do solos, write melodies, etc., etc. It's a little bit simpler than you think, so we're just going to go right from the beginning. We're going to start with the importance of knowing your scales. So I assume all of you practice your scales already. You do them up and down, arpeggios, thirds, and stuff. Yeah, blank faces, of course. So this might change your mind just a little bit. So the scales are the building blocks of music. They are the alphabet to words. We need to understand how the alphabet works to form them into words, and then how to make words into sentences. It's the same sort of thing with music. So we treat it much like a language. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Turn up your mic a little bit.
Where's that sound guy?
He quit.
So a scale it's a pretty simple concept. We're starting with a root note, which could be C, could be F, could be G, could be anything like that. And we're going to travel from that root note to the octave of that root note, which is 8 notes higher. We can refer to my little visual aid there. We're going to start with just the C major scale. And it starts off with a simple pattern. It's really easy if you're on a guitar, piano, or anything like that too. We start with our root note, and we're going to be moving up in half steps and whole steps. So some of you might know, but I'll go over it. A whole step is basically 2 notes, 2 note names, or 2 piano keys, 2 frets on the guitar. And a half step is just half that. We're just going up in 1. So it'll be combinations of whole and half steps. So we start with our root, which is C. We go up a whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F. Then we're going to do 3 more wholes. Whole up to G, whole to A, whole to B, whole to C. So we have a low C, we've got our higher C, or our middle C in this case. So those are generally the confines of the scale. As far as music goes, the notes just keep repeating themselves. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G in various octaves. So we go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and it goes on as far as the human ear can perceive. When it comes to your scales, they work the same from any note to any note. So we could pick an F sharp and do the same thing. Root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And you're going to get your do, re, mi, just like you learned in elementary school or when you're first starting. So these scales are extremely fundamental to music because absolutely everything in a song that is in a key is using those notes. So when we're in the key of C, every note being strummed, sung, played, soloed, etc. The lead guitar, everybody's doing the same notes. They're all doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So we also want to really think of those notes as a list of notes, not as we have to start on C and we have to end on C. We're just using all those notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, no sharps, no flats. So those are what make our, right? Flashback to kindergarten or doing piano lessons when we were first starting. So the essential thing you want to take home from this is that a song in the key of blank uses the notes in blank scale. So in F, we're using the F scale, G, we're using the G scale. And that's just how everything works. So when we're in the key of G, for example, I'm going to do a little song here for you. The notes in the scale are going to sound good. And I use the air quotes because sound good is subjective. What I think sounds great, you might think sounds terrible. So we have to really play around with them. But in essence, you need to work really hard to make these notes sound bad when they're working together. So I'll start with a simple progression that you can accept on faith. This is in the key of G. Some of you might recognize this is Wagon Wheel. Darius Rucker does that. So I'm just going to play the major scale over top of it. You're just going to see how easy it is. Nice and simple like that. You can see all he was doing there was playing the song, just playing the scale, just going up and down, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I mean, in essence, that's all everybody has to work with. The scale, the notes in the scale are going to work with the chords in the key. And it's all about what we do with those notes. It has very, very little to do with the notes themselves, because anybody can play tons and tons of notes and get really good chops and start to fly around. But it doesn't make it music. It's not musical. It's all about how we're going to apply those notes when we're using them. So I want to think of the ways that we use our scales. We practice them going up and down. We can practice them in thirds, where we play the first note, we skip to the third, and we go back, skip the next one. And we can hear right there, it's much more musical playing it like that. So it's the idea of mixing up all of the ideas and all of the different ways we play our scales together. Put that on here once more. There, I just made it much more interesting using the exact same notes. And I think a lot of people are looking for this secret combination of notes or these magic notes that really don't exist. I say they're looking for notes between A and A flat because they think, you know, when you hear a killer guitar player up there, like what does that person have that I don't, right? And it's nothing. I mean, they just have much more experience using those tools, just like anybody who's better, right?
So you're just playing the G scale on top of the chords.
Yep. When we're in the key of G, the G scale works. Now, as you could hear, you probably heard a couple of notes weren't perfect. They don't always sound great, but you have to work pretty darn hard to make it sound bad. And it's a concept set in stone. If for some reason the two do not work together, it means that it's not in the key properly. It means someone needs to tell you, and that's what we're going to get onto now. Because you're probably wondering, like, that's great, but how do I know I'm in the key of G? How do you know you're in the key of C? Unless someone tells you we're doing this in this key. And I mean, and perfect example is if you ever played Sweet Home Alabama, right? A lot of us have done that. Right? The song starts on a D chord, starts on a D major. Now, the average person would tell you, oh, the first chord is D, so we're in the key of D. Right? But we'll see if we go through the scale that all of the notes in Sweet Home Alabama do not fit with the D scale. So if you tried to play it in D, you probably had some really, really bad notes coming through, especially the C sharp over top of the C. Right? We end up with dissonance like that. So the word we're looking for now is diatonic. Anything that fits with the key signature or fits with the scale is a diatonic chord progression or a song that is diatonic. It follows the key. So not only are all of the notes being sung and played in the song in the key of C when we're in C, but every single chord is in there too. Every single note in every single chord is inside of there. And and as long as you're in key, I challenge you to find one where that doesn't work. So this is where we learn something very, very valuable. When we start to know all of our scales, we can adopt the Nashville number system. So if you know your Roman numerals, we're just going from 1 to 7, and we're giving the notes a name, or a number in this case, just in numerical order. So your first note will be C, so your first chord would start on C, 1 on the second note, 1 on the third one, 1 on the fourth one, etc. So we're going to start just by going through all of those. So the one chord, as we'll see, and I've labeled them here because there's a long, long explanation as to how the chords are made. I've just labeled them here. We've got chords that are just written with a number on their own, are major chords, and if they have the lowercase m, minor, just like when we're reading charts and stuff at home. So the one chord is just that. We're starting on the C chord, and we're going to play a major chord starting on C. So naturally, the first thing that should come to your head should be a C. Make sense? Right? So then we go to our 2 chord. It starts on the second note, which is D. So the 2 chord is minor. The second note of the scale will give you a chord that is minor. So we start on D, and we play a D minor chord, the first one we would go to. So we have 1 major, 2 minor. Now we're on to E, so we play E minor. We probably all learned that one if we haven't done D. So our 3 is minor. Our 4 chord is major, starting on F. Doesn't matter which one you do. Our 5 chord is G, G major, one we probably all learned first. sixth chord is minor, our sixth minor. Then we've got the 7 chord there, and you can see that little circle. That means diminished, and it's got a pretty ugly sound, and it's probably why you've never encountered it before, unless you do jazz and things like that. But it creates beautiful resolution because we have that horrible tension from the B, and we resolve on C. Okay, so that's our Nashville number system. When someone is yelling out numbers to you, if they say this is 1, 4, 5, we're adhering to these rules. If for some reason they're breaking the rules and they say, let's say they're going to play a 3 major, someone should tell you that. They shouldn't assume that you're going to know 3 is a major. For various styles of music, that might be implied, but you have to get to know it. So that's also how we can create some uniqueness. Anyway, so let's just go through those chords. Just for today, we're going to leave out the 7 because it's ugly. It doesn't really work very well. It's like that neighbor kid we lived by that we didn't really like, but our mom made us go play with them. They had a ping pong table, so they would be invited, but reluctantly. So we're going to avoid that for now, and we're just going to go with the numbers 1 to 6. And I'm just going to play them in order. There's not going to be anything musical about it, and you'll be able to hear how it works. Back to C. And we probably all heard something like that before. A certain Bob Dylan tunes does that even just in numerical order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, that's just a nice example of that. So, just like the scale, all those notes work together. All of these chords will work together. Again, there are bad choices to make, but for the most part, they're going to all work together. They're part of the same tribe, essentially. So we could take those chords, put them into any order we want, and we could make at least a little something happen. Maybe I can get Clayton to come up and help me. One of the other guitar teachers here, Clayton Yates.
Sorry, man.
That's all right. That's all right. So, Clayton doesn't know anything about this little lesson plan here. He has no idea what I'm going to ask him to do. But he knows his scales, and he knows this Nashville number system. And it works pretty seamlessly. So, what we're going to do is we're going to stick with the key of C, and we're going to pick a couple of chords. I'm just going to get Clayton to play them back and forth for me, and I'll play the C major scale over it, and just show you guys how it's going to work. So we're going to start with just a simple kind of folky country, a 1-5 chord. So we're going to use C and we're going to use G. And you can make it as many bars as you like or don't like. It's entirely up to you.
You know what? That's just another nice simple example. I just picked 1 and 5. So we can do a simple country or folk kind of tune like that, just picking a couple of chords like that. Let's try another one. Let's go 1-4. So just go C to F. See that?
Yeah, do the same kind of rhythm. I'm going to use the same scale, same notes and everything to play over top of Nice and simple, just like that. See, and I just played the exact same scale, and I played it with completely different chords. So while both songs will have a completely different feel to them and a different sound, we can play the scale the same way over top of it. And I wasn't doing anything much too fancy there. I just went up and down the scale. It's really important to know your scale in different places on your instrument. So being able to play C major in one octave, you know, with your right hand on the piano, for example, that limits you to just that set of 8 notes. We've got every single C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So anywhere you can find a C, you don't have to use the ones that are in the scale that you learned in grade 6, and you don't have to use the ones that are in the main riff of the song. All of those notes are going to be totally fair game. And as you saw, I went up to the high ones, I was down on the low ones. You can go anywhere as long as you're playing those notes. So it's another great reason to know your fingerboard quite a bit better. Now, failing that, the rest of us that play guitar have learned about scale positions, and they help us immensely throughout everything we do. So when you get to do the scale fingering for guitar, all you really need to do is find out how you're playing it, leave the open strings out, and you can move anywhere on your instrument. I don't even know which fret I'm on here, maybe 6, maybe 7? 7. So I was doing an E major scale there, but I didn't really need to know it. All you really need to know are the notes on your E string and the notes on your A string to be able to play D major, F sharp major, E major. So these are some of the tools that guitar players use to help us really cheat. So I can play in any key. For me to play an A is just as easy as moving my hand down 1 fret. Sorry, if I want to go to A flat, so this allows me to play in any key I want and be fearless about it. Most of us, you know, we hear something like A flat or F sharp and we cringe and we go, oh, how many sharps are in that? When you understand the position of your scales, it doesn't really matter when it comes to a fretted stringed instrument like that. So the other thing we need to remember too is that they're just a list of chords, they're a list of notes. You don't have to adhere to this order. In fact, even though we're in the key of C or we're in the key of G, you don't even need to play the C. You don't need to play the 1 chord for it to be right. So I'm going to get Clayton here to do a 2-5 for me.
Okay.
So just kind of like a...
Key of C, yeah?
Yeah, it's just D minor to G. So he's not playing a C chord at all, but I'm going to play in C major, and it's going to sound great. The C chord, the C note itself might not sound great though. So we have to just be sensitive about that. Still in the key of C. So the chords and the notes in the scale and the notes in the song are going to really be what dictates what key we're in. So that being said, that's how I kind of know that we're not in D major when we're playing Sweet Home Alabama. If you look at all the notes and all the chords, we're in G major. And it's going to work 10 times better, obviously. Right? No, no way. No one wants to hear that. I'm sure they've all tried it 1,000 times. Right? Okay, so this is my favorite part. As I said, these chords will work together, and I want to prove it to you. So what I want to do is we're going to create a 4-chord progression using just the numbers. So first I'm going to ask, does someone want to call out a random order of these numbers? So I just want you to shout 4 of these numbers out. So, and you know, try and make it sound bad. Now, if you say the same chord 3 times, yeah, it's going to be ugly. But now, of course, excluding that 7 chord, because like I said, it's ugly. It doesn't sound great. But from 1 to 6, can someone give me a combination? Rain?
3.
3, and then what?
And 5, and 4.
3, 5, 4. Okay, one more.
And 2.
3, 5, 4, 2. Can you remember that, or do we need to write it down?
5, 4, 2.
So in the key of C, our 3 chord is going to be E minor. Our 5 chord is going to be G. Our 4 chord will be F. And our 2 chord is going to be D minor. So just going to give us a little song here. I'm going to give a feel to it. Like I said, Rain is not a plant. I do know him, but he's not a plant. He chose those, and I know he was trying to mess me up because he did not put the C in there. Okay, but we're still in C. Remember that. So I'll just give it a little kind of Motowny feel to it. No C chord in there, but I just played C major scale, just all up and down, all the different ways I've played my C major scale over these years. Okay, the other one I'm going to do here. So we have 6 chords that we're calling good chords. It means that we can literally, with a roll of dice, we can write a song. So, of course, this is going to come back to haunt me because it's probably going to go like 4 ones right in a row, right? But I'm just trying to show just how random that is. So I'll get Clay to read them off, and I'll just roll them here.
All right, what do we got? We got 6, 4, 3, 1.
So it sounds like it was written backwards. We're going to end on C in this progression. 6, we're starting on A minor. Then we're going to F for our 4 chord. Our 3 will be D minor. And then we're ending on C.
Sounds good.
Yep, right? It's probably already ringing a bell of some sort. Okay, so starting at A, 2, 3, 4, and totally impromptu, not planned, just made up on the spot. You just got to play around with them, right? I mean, the only real difference between where I am and someone who's beginning is just the number of times I played through that scale. You can tell I've done it maybe once or twice, right? I mean, it's something I do all the time, and having that just really brings a lot of confidence to your playing. Now, at the beginning I was saying that these are all good notes in the C major. That's not to say that means those are the only notes you can use. We can create much more color by changing some of those notes. But it's important to be aware of where we can be, and if we're going to play with it, we need to be aware of where a good note should be if we're going to try one that doesn't really fit in. So I'm not going to tell you you have to play the notes in the C major scale to work with C, but I'm saying they're going to give you a really good path as far as note selection goes. So getting to know your fingerboard again is going to be huge.
Can I ask a question? So I could choose any three of those chords
Yeah,
and play the C scale over top of them, and it would work.
exactly.
Any combination of any three, any four.
Yeah, yeah. You have to work pretty hard to make it sound bad. You could, I'm sure if you dug around, you could find a note that didn't work.
Over top of any of them.
Yes. That's what we just did, right? We did 4 different progressions, completely different progressions, a random progression, and then the roll of dice, and we played it in C major.
It's not to pay attention to which ones are minor today.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and that is a set pattern too. 1 is major, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 and 5 are major, then we have minor, and that nasty diminished that I just say, if you're writing a simple song like we're doing, just ignore it. That diminished chord can be used, but it's not as easy to place as all of the other ones. Good question though. So always remember that too, and I do a little thing that's terrible with this, but it always works. I just kind of hold my fingers like this. The outside 2 are going to be major, the inside 2 are going to be major, the ones in the gaps are minor, and we got the diminished one over here. That's just a little way I try to remember it. So that works with any key. So get to know your scales, and this will work every single time. In A major, we'd have A major for a 1, B minor for a 2, C minor for a 3, D major for 4, E major for 5, our F sharp minor, and that nasty diminished, and back on A. Right, you can see why I leave that out. It's not really the prettiest note in there to put in there for sure. So again, I'll reiterate, those notes are not restricting you to those notes, right? It just gives you a path. It's the difference between driving around in the city and having a map and not having a map. You know, you might go down the wrong roads, you might end up in some bad neighborhoods. That doesn't necessarily mean something bad's going to happen, but you're setting yourself up for some disappointment or for some nasty, nasty notes. And we get that look from everyone in the band that, right? Which nobody wants to get. That's probably why a lot of you are here.
Julian knows that.
Yeah, we've all, oh yeah. Anyone who's tried improvising has had that look many times. What are you doing? And you know, it's a difference between sitting there guessing going, nope, nope, and finding the notes that do work like that. Right? And that's what I did forever, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the amount of time it took to figure out a little lick that was in my head, and nice and easy. Okay, so now we're going to talk about one, just making this a little bit easier for us. The pentatonic scale. I'm sure a lot of you were hoping we were going to talk about that at some point. So you probably know the minor pentatonic, but we're going to start with the major pentatonic. Very simple concept. All of the H's up here are our half steps. When we're doing a pentatonic scale, we're removing the half steps. So when we play a C major pentatonic, we get rid of F, and we're going to get rid of the C at the very, very end there. I mean, not that we really need to, but we're just getting rid of those half steps where the notes would be side by side. So instead of going, right, I'm getting rid of the F, and I'm going to get rid of the B here. So there's a half step between the B and the C. So I'm just going to play C, D, E, skip F to G, A, and C. Little Van Morrison tune there. I mean, you can see those kind of things write themselves. So can you just get me another, pick something in C and play it for me?
Anything in C.
Don't tell me what it is. So the major pentatonic takes out half steps, but it also gives you, it takes out some of the guesswork. All those notes that I said were iffy are going to be gone now when we do the major pentatonic. So we just take out those half steps from our F and our B.
You're going to like this, Tyson.
Okay. There's your major pentatonic, and you can see there's nothing iffy about it. Okay? So that's the basics of the pentatonic scale. So let's approach it from the other angle. So this is what we probably have already played around with a little bit, using the minor scale, or the minor pentatonic. So to start off, we'll just talk about the minor scale.
This is a little bit hard to wrap the head around, but it really makes sense in the end. So what we're going to be doing is working with the relative minor. Every major key has a relative minor that shares the key signature, it shares the notes. So there's a minor key that uses A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and it's A minor. So we're actually using literally A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So what we want to do, if we ever want to know the relative minor, we're going to go up to the 6th note of the scale. And that is going to be your relative minor key, whatever note that is. So if we're in G, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, E minor is your relative minor. The notes in the E minor scale are the same as the notes in the G major scale. And the C major and A minor are exactly the same. They're totally synonymous. And this is where I'm going to touch on a word you've maybe heard before, modes. Yeah, and we all kind of go, oh no, modes. Really, modes are just approaching the scale from one note in the scale to another note in the scale. That's not necessarily the root. So when we have our C Ionian is our first one, we have D Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian. Those really mean nothing. They're all C major scale. They're all just derivatives of the C major scale. And they're just using those notes, just like our chord progressions are. So you don't really need to know it, but in this case, the relative minor is our 6th, which is our Aeolian mode, if you ever heard that uttered. So our relative minor will be A Aeolian. Really, it's just C major, but you're thinking of it from A to A. Okay? So we'd have C, and A minor is going to share a lot of the same notes. We can see it just wants to end. So C major and A minor are shared the exact same notes. They're all the natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that every single one on your instrument is totally fair game, as far as the human ear is can hear it. A nice easy way of doing this on your guitar, because some of you have probably done the minor pentatonic shape like that. So that's what that is. You're just playing the relative minor of the major key that goes with it. So the relative minor, or the minor pentatonic, is generally used in blues. We see that most often, but we're going to show another application of it. It'll work in any minor key or in any major key, really, in the end. So I'm just going to do a blues in A. I'm going to get Clayton to play his minor pentatonic over it in solo.
You just want me to run the scale?
Run the scale a couple times and then play around with it. Just make it up, right?
All right.
Again, none of this is planned. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That first position of the scale to do any of that. I stayed right in the first position to do that whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And he's using the exact same notes. He's just using that minor pentatonic scale. And the minor pentatonic scale works the same way. We just take out those half steps. It takes out those iffy notes. It takes out the F, which is really ugly, and the B, that leading note, the friend of the friend that we don't like and don't want to invite to our house. It's going to be at the party. So that's how your minor pentatonic is going to work. And now, a nice easy way of using this too is we can remember that we've probably all done minor pentatonic, and we probably already know a pile of blues licks, and we're here because we're stuck in that rut, because that's all we ever know how to do. And when we play in major keys, we end up doing what I call the lick, and probably everybody's guilty of this. Let's try it. We've all tried that stuff. We hear it in country music and stuff. It's a great lick. It's a great lick, but sometimes we always feel like I'm just regurgitating the same ideas over and over and over again. One thing we can do is we can treat every song, whether it's major or minor, we can treat it like a blues. If it's minor, like G minor, we can just play our G minor pentatonic. And it's going to work. That's Old Faithful. But as I said, the major and the minor are relatives. They share each other's notes.
So if we're in the key of, let's say, B major, and nobody likes to play in B major, there's a ton of sharps in it, and you end up doing your lick, which works great, but we want to step outside that box. We can treat any song like a blues by finding the relative minor and applying it the same way. So on our guitar, we're lucky as hell. We can take our B, or take any note we're on, count down a step and a half, a whole step and a half, so we're going to go down 3 frets, and then we're going to play that minor scale, that minor pentatonic. We can play that over top of a song that's in B major. So the relative minor will work over top of the major key. Can you play something in B for me? Just like 1-5?
1-5, sure.
So he's going to play B major, and he's going to be playing F sharp major. And I'm going to be playing G sharp minor pentatonic. So that was kind of mean to throw B major at him, but as we can see, right, when we use this, I can just say 1-5. He uses his bar chord shapes, and he can play them anywhere on his instrument. He can be fearless in a key that would really terrify us if we were reading it. I think there's 5 sharps in B. Yeah, and it's nasty to try and read that. You don't get to use your open strings a lot if you're playing guitar or bass or something like that. So we can take any single song like that. Sorry, 1, 5, 4, 5. That's all we want to do with that.
We're in key of G.
Yeah, we'll do it in G. That's all I want to do. So just that first little bit of an Eric Clapton song, just to try this over. So I'll start in G major. So as we can see there, it's very like classical. I feel like I've gone back a couple of centuries and I'm going like a classical exercise. So what we can do is, I can take the relative minor, because we're in G major, I'll count down 3 frets, G, F sharp, F, E. I'm going to use my E minor pentatonic, which we've probably all done before when we learned our minor pentatonic. And I'll use the same blues licks I would use on a raunchy Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. I'm just going to do them a little bit slower.
Doing the same thing again?
Yep, same thing. So, I'm going to use the exact same scale, exact same idea. I want you to do a blues in E. Raunchy.
Sure. I'm into that.
Oh, I know. So again, Clayton doesn't know I'm asking him to do all this stuff. He's just going to play a blues. exact same notes for both of those songs. It's all about how we treat them in the end. So, doing pretty good for time here still. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you just a couple little pointers when you're trying to do a solo, just to reiterate how important it is. It's what we do with those notes. That's what it's all about. So, let's do, pick a progression in any key you want. Just tell me what key.
So any progression.
Yep.
Okay. Let's
key?
do. What are we gonna do here? Let's do A.
A major?
A major.
Okay.
I like A major.
Yeah, A major is a good one. So, Clayton's chosen A, so we've got all of our notes A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. I'm going to use the relative minor, count down 3 frets or 3 semitones or half steps from A flat, G, F sharp, minor pentatonic. Again, we see F sharp, we get scared and we run away. Okay? So, the importance of soloing and showing you this is I'm going to solo with one note. I'm going to try and make one note sound as musical as I can. Because if you can't make one note sound musical, doing a whole bunch of them is not going to help you. You know, it's just going to be playing a bunch of notes. It's like having a really good vocabulary doesn't make you a good poet. You can know 1,000 words, right? But if you don't know how to use them and you're not eloquent, no one's going to want to listen to it. That's a Victor Wooten quote, too. Music is a language, and unless... if you want somebody to, pardon?
It's a good analogy.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's a language, and unless you've got something interesting to say, no one's going to want to hear you, right? So I'm going to pick one note. It's not going to be awesome the entire way through. It's not going to be incredibly impressive. But if you can't groove on one note, it's not going to happen with more. So I'm going to, as I get more comfortable, I'm going to add a couple more notes in here, and you're going to see just how much music we can make with just 2, 3, 4 notes. Okay?
You just anything in A?
Yep, A major.
Okay, I'm starting on the 4.
Cool. So think about how you play your notes. You can play them loud, you can get them quiet. We can vibrato them, we can give them a little bit of character. So let's add a couple more. Add a couple more now. See how I just grew on that? One note's going to sound pretty iffy on its own, right? We started adding a couple more in, and we add a few more in here. It's more about what I was doing with them. I just played them in first position, or sorry, our second position here, and just played with 5 or 6 notes. Eventually I just started playing the entire scale through. So you've really got to focus on what you're doing with the notes. Slurs, hammer-ons, pull-offs if you're playing guitar, bends, vibrato, dynamics are huge, right? We could see that when we speak really softly, we can draw our audience in. And when we yell really loud, right, we're going to throw them back. So a lot of it is creating some contrast. Right, we got to surprise them. We got to shock some people into something like that. Okay. All right.
We should talk about building tension by playing behind the beat.
Okay, there's more so focusing on our selections. So that's pretty much all I've wanted to go over with everybody. Are there any questions?